Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be celebrating our 600 subscriber milestone by updating our viewer subscriber recommendation suggestion list. Now, before we get into the list itself, I wanted to address some things from our recent Denver review series. As for anybody that might not know, I'm originally from the Denver area, and as a result, I like to observe any changes within the coffee scene itself anytime I do go back and visit. And the first thing I wanted to address was our review of the Papua New Guinea from SK Coffee. And I did post a comment down below in that same video that addressed the fact that I went back that following Sunday and had that exact same cup of coffee, and it was a much better second impression of that coffee than the review was itself. And I feel like it's because the first time I tried that coffee, they were at the tail end of their batch brew. The second time I went there, it was significantly more fresh, and as a result, it was a much better second impression, a lot more vibrant and sweet as a whole. So that does go to show that there are certain times where a coffee shop might not do justice to the coffee that they are serving, and I feel like that was the case from the first time around trying it, and as a result I wanted to give SK some credit for having a much more impressive cup of coffee the second time around I tried it. And I wish I would have done a second review for that coffee, but unfortunately you kind of have to go with what you have at the time. And that does transition into the next thing I wanted to address, which is Corvus. And Corvus, I found out, has another location, this time up in Arvada. And I got an opportunity to go there and try their Illumination and Afterglow, both Panamanian Gesha coffees. And I really wished I got an opportunity to review either of those two coffees, but most specifically their washed carbonic maceration Panamanian Gesha, because that was the best cup of coffee I'd had in my entire time in Denver, and it's something I felt was worth addressing, as there are a lot of people that are huge fans of Corvus's coffees, and I'm a huge fan of what Corvus is doing, as they seem to go pretty heavy now on trying out a lot of different things, unique offerings, and I really love the fact that they now have a coffee shop that does some maybe higher end pour over offerings. It's a really pretty shop as well, so I wanted to give Corvus a lot of credit for that. Along those same lines, in terms of coffee roasters that are changing quite a bit, I needed to address the big Sweet Bloom elephant in the room. As for anybody that might not know, Sweet Bloom is the coffee roaster I stand by the most. They're the coffee roaster that I grew up with, and there have been so many changes within Sweet Bloom over the last couple of years. The first big change was a couple years ago when they merged with a coffee roaster up in Arvada called Two Rivers, and now that coffee shop is also a Sweet Bloom. And ever since then, there has been some other significant changes, including the fact that the actual roaster himself has changed, as there's a new coffee roaster. And that wasn't necessarily a big issue, as we'd recently reviewed the Karen Dundu, which I thought was every bit as good as a lot of the previous coffees I'd had from Sweet Bloom. But the bigger change has been that they switched from a San Franciscan roaster to a Loring. And that's something that I took note of when I first found out the change was going to be made, but it's not something I necessarily noticed because I hadn't been trying too many of Sweet Bloom's coffees, mostly due to some other projects that I was working on. But recently, when I got an opportunity to try a couple of their coffees, I noticed a bit of a difference, and I did check to see if they might have started switching the actual machine itself, and it turns out that they did. And I messaged a couple of people that also drink Sweet Bloom pretty regularly, and they said that they noticed the difference as well. Interestingly enough, I had a couple of people that reached out to me personally that I didn't even know were big Sweet Bloom drinkers, and they said the same thing to me as well, that they had noticed a lot of changes within Sweet Bloom itself. So that's something that I've been keeping an eye on, and it's something that I've noticed, and something that's definitely distinct with the changes that they have made. And as somebody that grew up with that specific nostalgic factor for Sweet Bloom's coffees, it's been a big change, and I know it's going to take some time to adjust, but it'll be interesting to kind of address that in some future Sweet Bloom videos, which I do have some Sweet Bloom reviews coming up as well, and I'll probably discuss those a little bit more in depth as to exactly what the changes I've noticed have been. All right, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and start discussing the suggestions recommendation list itself. And so the notes for the suggestion recommendation list, anything that's crossed out is a coffee roaster that we have done 2 reviews of, a washed and a non-washed, and anything in italics is something that we've done 1 review of. Let me try to go through this list as quick as possible, given that it's a long list and it continues to get longer with each day. So let's start with Archers, which was suggested to us by Dan Dan. That's been at the top of our list for a very long time. It's a coffee roaster that I would love to try, but they do not ship to the United States, and it's something I actually wanted to discuss with anybody that might be in the Middle East, because I've never tried this coffee roaster, but I trust Dan Dan's opinion on this, and if there's a coffee roaster you're looking for in the Middle East, then I feel like they would probably do a very good job, given that they have a really impressive selection of coffees, and it's something that I really want to try, and I will go kind of sight unseen and suggest them to anybody that is looking for something to try in the Middle East. Let's speed run through the rest though. We have a couple of suggestions from Tim Tam Jimmy UE, which is surprising. I have not seen any of the subscription services. I'm really reliant on a lot of these European subscription services to offer some of these British or Irish coffee roasters because they're really difficult to get here. Some of them don't even ship to the United States, and I believe that Bailey's is one of those, which was also suggested to us by Sam Griffiths. But UE has been kind of interesting. A lot of multi-roasters in the United States used to carry UE's coffees, but I have not seen them in quite a while, so it's kind of surprising I haven't reviewed them yet to this point, as they're the second highest coffee roaster on our list. But the way that this list works, of course, I try to do things in order of when we receive them if I am going to actually place an order directly from a coffee roaster. So UE might be happening soon. I don't have a time frame for that, nor do I have a time frame for a lot of the other suggestions from Tim Tam Jimmy. Darkwoods, White Star, I don't believe that they ship to the United States either. And then we have Square Mile, which is interesting because a lot of multi-roasters used to carry Square Mile's coffees, but I have not seen a lot of those same multi-roasters carrying anything from them recently. I believe Revolver still does, so Revolver might be the first opportunity I get to pick out one of Square Mile's coffees, but it's been a little bit, so hopefully we'll be able to get to those soon. Next up, we have Duck Rabbit from Greg, and a lot of these American coffee roasters that were suggested to us, I took a look at all of them when we did our most recent American blind taste test rankings video, and I know that Duck Rabbit was one of those I looked at, and it's one of those things where I would really love for them to have a washed and a non-washed coffee that appeals to me, that I think I will like. Unfortunately, they didn't at that time. Given that they're higher on the list, I would have, of course, purchased them had that been the case. These next two suggestions from you, Lumon, they're two coffee roasters that are very interesting, but most specifically Lustbauer, the other one, of course, being Johannes Bayer, but Lustbauer has arguably the most impressive selection of coffees that sound like my types of coffees. They have a couple of Panamanian coffees, a geisha, a couple of geishas actually, and a non-Panamanian geisha, it's a Larita, that I really want to try. Their shipping is very expensive, so it's one of those orders that if I went in on, it would have to be quite a bit of a splurge, but they're a coffee roaster that does ship to the United States, is very expensive, so hopefully maybe something special I'll be able to purchase their coffees because they have some coffees I'm very interested in. Kelowna Coffee suggested to us by Colin Hong and Sam Griffith, so they're in italics because we have reviewed one of their coffees and it was a Diego Bermudez coffee, if I remember correctly, so we have to review a washed coffee of theirs, so still that to come. Established, still don't remember who suggested that to us, but we continue on to Apollon's Gold, which once upon a time, Dayglow used to carry them somewhat more regularly, but I have not seen them on Dayglow's offerings recently. Hopefully Dayglow brings them back soon so I can purchase some of their coffees, because their coffees sound really good. They sound really interesting. Good Cup Coffee Co., if I remember correctly, they are based out of Korea. I don't think I gave a shout out to Polar Bear. These were both Polar Bear's suggestions. So I really want to try their coffee. I actually really like Korean items in general, so that would be a great chance if I get an opportunity to try them soon. Momo's Coffee by Ed Takagi, Moster Coffee by Chris Bystrek, and then we have SK Coffee by Maddie Tees, and of course we have our SK Coffee review that's up now, but I would still like to do a full bag review of one of their coffees, so they remain on our list, and a single cup review isn't going to switch a coffee to italics, so we still in theory should do a washed and a non-washed for SK Coffee. Little Waves, suggested to us by Greg and Think890, so they're a coffee roaster I look at pretty regularly. Unfortunately, it looks like their coffees might be a little bit more developed than I typically like. Even then, I'm still trying to order something from them, but I want to order something that may be a little bit more light and a little bit more my profile, because I don't want to order coffees that I know I'm not going to like. So Little Waves is a little tricky. They don't seem like my type of roaster. However, I still want to review them first opportunity I get. Coptic Light is an interesting one. They were suggested to us by Zach, and Coptic Light doesn't rotate their coffees often, so they don't have too many different offerings. So it's kind of tricky to pick out something from them. I have an eye on them, of course, but when I get an opportunity to try something from them, if they ever release a Panama, that seems like a perfect opportunity. All right, Steady State, suggested to us by Sam Kondawal, and I believe Greg wanted us to scratch off Florin from this list, so we will ignore Florin that's currently on this list. And we have Curve, which was suggested to us by Sam Griffiths, and Workshop, which was also suggested to us by Sam Griffiths. So I have one Workshop review as a washed processed Ecuador I want to save, so still need to do a non-washed processed coffee. Then we have Dragonfly, which was suggested to us by Ian Mikutel. And Dragonfly is a coffee roaster that I have a lot of familiarity with. This is a great opportunity to discuss something that happened while I was out in Denver. There's a coffee shop that used Dragonfly as kind of their house roaster. However, the coffee shop has since, I believe, moved to Kansas City. It was called Precision Pours. And I was hoping to go there and pick up a bag of Dragonfly coffee. However, since they no longer exist, I didn't get that opportunity, which is a little unfortunate. I have a lot of familiarity with Dragonfly coffee, and that felt like a great opportunity to finally do so. So hopefully sometime here in the near future, but let's continue on to the library specialty coffee, which was suggested to us by Ramana Raja. And while we're on that same note, I wanted to discuss that we still have the rare offering from Hatch on our list, which was also suggested to us by Ramana Raja. And that's one of those things where they do have some more limited offerings, but I'm looking for something very specific, like those 100-gram rare offerings that they have in those little jars. And those are really hard to get your hands on, and they don't come out as often as they may have once used to come out. But it's the coffee that I think would be a better review. They have stuff like Letty Bermudez and Luna Bermudez from time to time, but I'm looking for something maybe a little bit more exclusive, maybe a little bit more limited, because I feel like that's kind of what would give me a better gauge of their coffee in general. We have a couple from Moten Yang, and we have Lineage and Foxtail. A lot of familiarity with Lineage, no familiarity with Foxtail. Typically check those when we're looking at American coffee roasters. Rabbit Hole, which was suggested to us by Think 890, and Basil Berry. Rabbit Hole is interesting. I remember looking at their coffees and kind of saying that they are not necessarily my type of offerings. With that being said, though, I feel like it's one of those things, if I wait around for the right time, then they might have some things that skew a little bit more towards my profile, something a little bit more light and much more on the washed side of things. So I'm keeping an eye on them. Obviously need 2 coffees from them, so hopefully the stars align on that one. Assembly, another British coffee roaster. They were suggested to us by Daniel Wiseman, and once upon a time there was a coffee shop here that also used to carry Assembly. I have not seen them carrying Assembly in a while. More places used to carry Assembly, but that one's become a little bit more tricky. Andytown, suggested to us by Knights. A lot of familiarity with Andytown, San Francisco-based coffee roaster, and yeah, we're just gonna have to see when something aligns with them as well. Cave & Coffee, suggested to us by Nick, and Swevin, suggested to us by Yokata. And we have one review from Swevin, which I believe was our only Koji processed coffee, and it was a interesting coffee. So we still need to do a wash from them, so they're still on our list. Luminous, and I'm going to give a quick shout out to Connor if he's watching, because Connor is a big fan of Luminous coffee, and they were suggested to us by Basil Berry. It's interesting, even if they weren't suggested to us by Basil Berry, they're a coffee roaster that I have been subscribed to their newsletter that they release every single Friday for quite a while now. And I check every single Friday when they do send out that email, because I really want to try their coffees just personally, in addition to the fact that they've been suggested to us by a couple of people. Unfortunately, I want to purchase 2 coffees from them at the same time, and they have yet to have a washed and a non-washed coffee that both sound really interesting to me on a same drop. So once that happens, I'm definitely going to purchase something from Luminous. It's just a matter of time, if not when. Correction, when, not if. All right. Next up, we have a bunch of coffees suggested to us by Niall Circle Pour. So we have Lucid, Videla, I believe, Artisan, Glenleon, Blossom, and Mission. And I believe a lot of these, if not all of these, are European-based coffee roasters. So when these were first suggested to us, I took a look through all of them, and I will continue to look through all of them, especially if we're looking at more European reviews in the future. Last up, we have Sumo, which was suggested to us by Yokata and Zachariah Gardi. And they're a very trendy Irish coffee roaster, and I've heard a lot about Sumo, and I've seen some subscription services offering Sumo's coffees. So hint, hint, nudge, nudge, might be working on something for Sumo here in the near future. I'm actually waiting on maybe something to arrive. Again, hint on that one. So Sumo is something that I will be working on hopefully here in the near future, but even then, obviously we want to go with one washed, one non-washed for them. If you have anything else that has not been included in that list, please let me know so I can add it to this list, as I believe for the most part this is as up to date as I've had suggestions, but I could be missing something. And if there's something that you want to have reviewed that is not on here already, then please let me know. There was a suggestion to us by Watch Medicine, which was a, I want to say Volcania Sumatra, which is the most interesting and unique suggestion I've ever had for any coffee. And it's on the list. I guess I haven't necessarily physically put it down yet, but I have seen the comments about that coffee. And yeah, it's not necessarily my type of coffee, but it's one thing that, I mean, if it's suggested to us, then I will do my best to review it. So that one, hopefully sometime soon. I guess we'll see. As you can see, this list is quite long and extensive, so I'm doing my best to work through these. It's a little bit difficult between a lot of the coffee roasters that don't ship and stuff that I'm waiting on, and also projects that I'm currently working on as well. Last thing I wanted to say, I've had a couple of people inquire about a Q&A, so if you guys are actually interested in seeing a Q&A, then please let me know and submit any questions that you would like to see in a Q&A, and I will answer any of those questions as well. I figured we're not necessarily big enough at this point to have like a true full-length Q&A video, but if you guys have a lot of questions that you want answered, then I will do my best to answer those questions, anything pertaining to the channel, of course, and anything coffee related. I'm more than willing and happy to answer as well. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know, and I will do my best to release a Q&A video as well. Of course, last thing I wanted to say was thank you to everybody that has contributed to this channel, anybody that's subscribed, because this is a nice milestone. We continue to appreciate every single milestone that happens, and this is why we have this suggestions recommendation list, because it's fun to discuss my coffees, but it's also really fun to discuss your coffees as well. I feel like it kind of gives everybody an idea of maybe what other people think of their coffees, and I really appreciate any and all feedback. I'm like a bank of knowledge when it comes to hearing the opinions of others, because I take everybody's ideas, thoughts on all of these coffee roasters and just kind of store them. That way, if somebody is ever curious what maybe others think or my own impressions or what I've heard about a coffee roaster, it's always really useful to have your thoughts on them as well. So I greatly appreciate everybody's contribution, and anybody that has subscribed, liked, and commented, it's been greatly appreciated. And if you are new around here, then please do so, because I really appreciate the coffee community that we have built. It's a wonderful coffee community. It's such a positive thing, and for a community that has a lot of gatekeeping, our subscribers have been wonderful, so I can't thank you guys enough for everything that you have done. So I'm going to leave this video at that. Thank you guys for the 600 subscribers. I look forward to everything that happens from this point going forward. A lot of projects that we are going to continue to work on. So just thanks for everything, and hope everybody has a wonderful day.